So it seems as if today's Days of Our Lives episode just had to be, emotional and highly intense. Like everything was just on par today. Everybody was acting their butts off. It was just highly intense. Merry Christmas to you all, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful Christmas with your loved ones. I know I said I wasn't gonna be on here, but sneak away a little time, from family to just come and just give the recap real quick. Honestly, it was a great episode, 10 out of 10. Normally, the Christmas episodes, I have to wonder if, it's just going to be, mostly Horton gatherings and the ornament hanging and all that. And, even though that's nostalgic and all that, I like, you know, the untraditional scenes. And it definitely was given that today. Let's start off with EJ and Chad. So they're just checking in with each other and also, what's going to happen to Peter, who is going to take over in order, to control if he's going to be alive or not, who's going to make that executive decision. So they talked about Kristen because, Kristen is his biological sister, and she has to be included in this as well. He asked Chad about Kristen, and Kristen's still recovering, having the antibiotics. So they said that it's just a decision they would have to make unilaterally together. So at some point too, they talk about the custody hearing and whether or not it's going to push through, because regardless if Chad is back from wherever it is, it's still going to go through. And EJ is just trying to offer support as well. Now there was a part with EJ and Kat, which I will get into at some point, and that left Chad very uncomfortable, right? Now, Kristen, listen, Kristen, MVP of the show today, because honestly, she acted off her butt. She gave us everything possible, different layers of emotion. Listen, I was almost sobbing with her. And I'll tell you why in a bit, right? So first off, Sarah came in, because she's her attending doctor. She's on antibiotics. Kristen is on antibiotics, and she's handcuffed to the chair, to the hospital bed, because of course she has to go back to Statesville after she is healed. And she talks to Sarah about Peter, and how is he doing. And Sarah said that he's still in critical condition, and look, you are a hero for what you did to ensure that your family was safe at the end of the day. And she doesn't feel like that, because at the same time she injured her brother unintentionally, and she feels bad about that. But it is what it is. Like, she was just trying to stop him from harming her siblings, right? And Sarah understands that, and Sarah says that what she did was very heroic. She talks about Rachel and the fact that she couldn't get through to Bayview to talk to her, and she's hoping that she can talk to her today or send a word to her. And Sarah said, I'll see what I can do, right? Now, Chanel and Johnny, they are still, just basically discussing what has happened with the mirrors being found. And you know Johnny have to take over Theo's role as CEO. He's acting CEO, and he's managing all the calls from Theo's friends and loved ones, whatever. And he's saying, it's definitely a lot that comes with it, and hopefully Theo can recover so that he can take over back his position. Of course, Chanel is very uncomfortable about this, but she's not voicing her opinions. But Chanel is that type of person that you can tell how they're feeling based on the expression on their face, and she's very expressive, right? They talk about the fact that it's also Trey's first Christmas, and they're going over to see Theo and just support Abe and Paulina in this time, right? Later on in the episode, we do find out that Chanel is expecting, because Sarah did, you know, bring her aside to actually discuss her test results, and we already know she was expecting congratulations. And I'm happy for her. Honestly, I'm happy for them, because this has been a journey, and she has had losses after losses, and I'm definitely happy for them. But what does this mean for Baby Trey? I hear that Elizabeth also was saying in the comments about Sophia actually getting back Baby Trey. So let's see how this all comes out, if your theory is definitely right, Elizabeth. Now, Johnny and Chanel make it to the hospital. Of course, they see EJ in the corner, and Chanel has no words for him. I would think she would try to be cordial for the sake of holidays and just say, hello, EJ, I'm glad that you're okay, because she was genuinely worried about his safety. Like, you don't have to be friends with the man or be all, buddy buddy with him, but at least say, hey, EJ, I'm glad, because at the end of the day, that is your husband's father. He is kind of cool with him, and also that's Trey's grandfather. Like, let's just keep it cute for the holidays, right? You can go back to doing whatever after, but I guess she is who she is, right? Real is real, right? So EJ and Johnny gets to talking. Johnny is saying that he's glad that he's okay. He's glad that he's safe. And, EJ also says to him, I heard that you got the position for Demir Enterprises, and, how are you doing it? So he said, it's only temporary. I'm just there to support Theo in this time. And he said, what if Theo has a long road to recovery? Like, you may be there longer than needed, and hopefully you stick around. So he said, yes, I definitely will. And EJ said that he's there to support him if he needs it, and he said, yes, I'll definitely appreciate it, right? Now, Abe and Paulina are at Theo's side, and they're just praying over him. They're just saying that, they're gonna hold off Christmas until he recovers. That he's coming back to elaborate family feast and all the fixings and all of that. And Abe is just very emotional, because at the end of the day, like, he just feels so much regrets, and he just wants his son to come back to him. And it's just a really emotional time for the holidays for the Carver family, right? Chanel and Johnny come over, and they also express their well wishes. They send flowers, and Johnny said, come back to your Demera position. I took it over temporarily. So of course that was unbeknownst to Abe and Paulina, but Paulina's like, we can get into that at another time. All we need to focus on is Theo getting better. Of course, you see Chanel's anger face again when Johnny mentions him, taking over the mayor CEO position temporarily, right? But it is what it is. Now, Kat, I don't know. Kat looked as if, somebody took her breath away, and that somebody was Chad, and she just hugged him, and she was happy that he's safe. And, he didn't know he was going to see her again, and he welcomed the hug as well. He missed her as well. And, they talked briefly, but, ultimately Chad said, look, I want my kids. So, whatever this is between us, it can't really happen. And Kat understands that. And, it's bittersweet between the two of them, because they definitely want to be together, but it is what it is. And, Chad said he has some errands to do, as well as Kat. And Kat leaves. At some point, Kat brings EJ some coffee, and they briefly talk. And, EJ was telling her that she could go home for her family. And she said, no, it's fine. I can be here. So he hugs her, he thanks her for everything. And Chad is at the elevator. He comes out, and he sees them. He's very uncomfortable seeing them hug. But at the end of the day, like, Chad, it is what it is. Like, you don't want to be with her. You can't be with her because, again, you have a more important priority, and that is ultimately fine. But you can't feel a type of way if Kat decides to move on with EJ or with anybody else. Like, she's not yours to claim at this point. Like, why do you feel and look this way? Now, Rachel is out temporarily out of Bayview for the holidays, well, for Christmas, right? She has to go back in the night. That was thanks to Marlena, because Marlena, of course, she, with her being a therapist, she was able to pull some strings. And we'll get into that at some point. Sarah was there. Of course, it's a little bit awkward, and Rachel feels bad about what she did to her, and she apologized to her yet again. And Sarah said, look, it's no hard feelings. I understand, and I accept your apology. But of course, it's still a little bit awkward, right? At some point, Brady does come by, because Sarah did interrupt his intense conversation with Krista, which we'll talk about as well. And, she tells him that, Rachel has been out for, the holidays, just for today, right? And Brady's happy about it, because he really missed his daughter, and Rachel was happy to see him and to spend some time with him. She was wondering if she was really going to have a really terrible Christmas, but thanks to her grandma Melena, she was able to come out and, at least be around family, right? Now, Brady also thanked Marlena, because Marlena was worried if she overstepped again. I said, no, no problem, because I was trying to get her out myself, but it didn't work. And she said that she knew the director there, and that was able to take Rachel out temporarily under her supervision and bring her back, right? So Brady also talked about the fact that this Christmas is not really Christmasing because John is not there. So it's really not a very Merry Christmas for the Black family. Of course, he's gonna come over to celebrate with Marlena, just to still lift her spirits. Also, he talked about, Kristen and Rachel, because Rachel was able to go see her mom, which definitely I think was the scene of the day, honestly, to me. He did speak to Sarah. Neither here nor there. I really don't care about their conversation more than, he's saying that she needs to be home with her daughter for Christmas, and that was it really. They talk about Rachel briefly and how it was awkward and all of that. But yeah, nothing much. I know they're gonna put them together, and I'm just really dreading these scenes to really go over. Anyways, to the scene of the day, Kristen, Rachel, and Brady. Now, earlier, Brady spoke to Kristen just to really tell her how he feels about being left out of the decision, why, and how, he should feel included in her decisions. And although he's mad at how she went about it, he's also grateful for her protecting their daughter. And she said she would do it over and over again. She would go to prison 90 times to protect their daughter. And, she realized that Rachel does have a problem, and for her to point a gun at her uncle, like, she really has a problem, and we can't sugarcoat it. And even though Brady's trying to sugarcoat it, this is why she didn't include it in the decision, because you are going to just say, oh, she's still the same innocent sweet girl. Like, there's no preserving her. This is who she is, and she really needs the help. No, the baby thing, I don't really know if that's the right help, but yeah, Kristen is upset about that. And she just feels as if, something needed to be done. And she said that, look, I need to go back to Statesville because I do not want my daughter to suffer, right? It's best if I suffer and she stays protected. And Brady is not for it. Brady thinks that, okay, she needs to take accountability, and it's just going to tear the relationship apart. At some point, Rachel comes in, and, Kristen was at first saying, Brady, I don't want to talk about this again. But he surprised her, Rachel, and let me tell you, it was no dry eye in that house. Rachel and Kristen did a phenomenal job. Very great acting. And, Rachel really missed her mom, and Kristen really missed her. And, she thought that she ran away. People were saying that she ran away. And, Kristen said no, she would never do that to her daughter. And, she's saying that she has to go back because Rachel thought, okay, now you're back. I'll definitely work harder to get better. And, she tells her the hard truth. And she said, no, you can't go back. Like, I will definitely confess. Don't worry about it. And Brady comes in, and she's like, Dad, like, tell her that she doesn't have to go back to jail. um I will confess. I will do what I need to do to let her stay out of it. And Rich and Kristen's like, no, you can't do this and everything. And she's a child. It's not her decision. And Brady said, look, once it's in the DA's office, like, they will treat this very delicately. Don't worry about it. We'll face this together, but your daughter wants you home, and it's best for the both of you. And Kristen is like, okay, all right, I'll consider it, right? Definitely a very beautiful moment between the three of them and coming together co-parent, because let me tell you, if you know about Brady and Kristen from the beginning, you know their track record with how they've been toxic with each other, with their relationship, and with the custody ratio. They've come a far away. This tickled me, that the fact that, they didn't find a Horton, but they found in the mirror to be Santa for the day and, read to the children, because that's a traditional thing they do every Christmas episode for days, right? But I don't know, it tickled me to see EJ reading the Christmas story, and even Paulina saying, like, look at the devil reading Christmas story. And I don't know why she had to be so snarky, but it was funny at the same time. And Chanel was like, Bob, just, don't do it, right? So Abe and Paulina, Chanel, Johnny, they were there with Baby Trey. They were watching the Christmas story and being told. Also, Abe thanks Marlena to just looking on Theo as well. They were just showing scenes not only of EJ telling the story, but also what happened with Chanel's news, also with Brady, Rachel, and Kristen bonding, and figuring this out together. Kat looking at Chad in the hospital room, well, in the main area of the hospital, looking at each other, flirting or whatever they're doing with their eyes. Yeah, that was really it. Yeah, and also Theo in the hospital bed. This was a great episode. I'm not gonna lie, like this is one of my best Christmas episodes for days, honestly, in a long while. Let me know, guys, what you guys think of today's Christmas episode. Was it a yay or a nay? Comment below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful Christmas.